All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
We met at a pitching event where you
Yeah,
pitched your business,
that's
um,
right.
and we caught up afterwards. I think you have a really cool and interesting business that not a lot of us tech heads and nerds um, get into, but we were talking about that earlier. So rather than me rambling, it would be great to get a quick intro of who you are and an elevator pitch of your business.
Sure. Yeah. So no, thanks for having me. So I'm Emilia De Stasio. I'm the founder of Artscapy. Artscapy is a wealth management platform for art collecting and investing. We exist to make it more transparent, more accessible, breaking down the barriers to get into this as an asset class and managing an art portfolio. Um, my background is in economics and finance.
Okay.
I studied That's what I studied in the US. I did my undergraduate in the US, and then I followed with my postgraduate at Warwick University here in the UK. And academically, my interests have always been in macroeconomics. It's also what I pursued in terms of analytical research, and I've been published in a few peer-reviewed academic journals. And probably the coolest one has been or the most famous one, most quoted one, has been the one looking at the macroeconomic effects of Eurozone membership on non-members. So that was a nice experience to do, and after that, my academic journey kind of coincided with my professional one. So I went to the European Central Bank, and again I was kind of involved in let me say two analytical streams. So one looking at policy implications for the European banking sector, and then looking at the Greek banks during the sovereign crisis. And
Wow.
yeah, that was that was a
So,
crazy
so you
time.
were in the middle of that when it was happening.
Yes.
Must have been
Yeah, and,
crazy.
and I think that was the first moment where I really saw how you tell a different story using numbers. So this got me interested in also how do you look at something quantitatively and build a story from that. And so I think that's always been an interest of mine in terms of and also what I do with the startup now, and kind of as an investor into startup is, what's the story that the data is telling me, whether that's the market data or whether that's the financial data of the business. But that was sort of the first really highlight moment, is what I was doing there. So I was part of the team looking at the Greek banks, and what I found was basically this asset anomaly was up to 500 million. And that got featured into the report, and a week later that was all over the headlines in Europe. So I was shocked to see how one number on a spreadsheet then ends up being
Interesting. So basically, you took down the Greek economy. I'm joking. It's
well,
like
they weren't
found
they
some
weren't happy
numbers.
with me, but yeah.
Wow, that is interesting. Well, so sounds like you're really into numbers. Like you would put it in very
Yeah,
very simple
yeah.
terms, quite analytical. Where does that come from? Do you know? Is there? It, how did that interest got started? How did it evolve? Must have been some trigger moments when you were younger and you're like, well, I love these calculations in school, or I love.
Yeah, I think so. I've always been quite curious, and what I like is understanding, in some sense, not the truth, but like understanding the story that is the real story. So numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
We make up different explanations for things, but that is an area that can really influence things. So you can spot trends. A lot of the research that I end up doing after that is also into different asset markets, asset classes. I've always been interested in alternative investments, but also there, what's interesting to see is what moves the number. So I like also this idea of the relational thing. So how the different x's influence the y. So thinking about very statistical analysis. I mean, this is
Yeah.
getting very like nerdy and
No,
geeky.
no, but I understand. I mean, I understand it. I don't like it, but I understand it. I mean, I understand now where the source of that interest comes from. Sounds like you're interested in the true, the raw true,
yeah,
the true behind certain things,
and the cause and effect.
and the cause and effect. Yeah, and the way you can get to discover that truth or the cause and effect is by looking at and analyzing the numbers, the data,
Exactly.
and everything in between. That makes a lot of sense. So that has been your passion since the early days. Were you good in school? Were you
Yeah.
how was school?
I was I mean, I was basically a straight A student in
Right.
that sense.
Figures.
Yeah.
Figures.
Figures. Yes. No, I think it's always been the intellectual curiosity, been always quite broad, and I think that's quite a red thread throughout my entire journey. In terms of that's where my passion for the arts come in as well. Is this curiosity of how do people see things, how do people interact, how do they interpret things, and I happen to apply it personally in my personal life, in my professional life, analytically, but then intellectually I like to open that field. So that goes into languages, that goes into travel, that goes into seeing how different people live, how do they look at things, and that's captured for me in the art.
Very interesting, and I can see the connection, the relation there. We'll talk a bit in a second about your transition to the career that you had into your startup. But initially I would have said, well, you sound super analytical and someone that works with numbers. What on earth are you doing in arts, right? So, but you explaining where that drive comes from, I mean, it's natural because we are. I can't necessarily say that because I sometimes take things for granted. I don't think I have your passion in finding the truth and nothing but the truth and the cause and effect of stuff. I just take things as they are quite often. But I think Nikki would probably be a lot more in your tune in that sense. But I can understand where the interest in art comes because it's not just I love numbers. No, that's not the drive. The drive is something else that can be applied to anything, like you said, travel, people, arts, and such.
Yeah.
Very interesting. How did you get to US? Because you said you studied in US.
Yeah. So I.
Where are you originally from, actually?
Sweden.
First? Sweden. Okay.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, my husband is Italian, so if I make hand gestures, that's why. It's by osmosis.
My mom lives in Italy and my sister used to as well. So when I go there...
Yeah, but it's very useful. It's very... gives expression.
Right.
So I was interested... I've always been interested in languages. So my mother is Hungarian, so... speak Swedish, Hungarian, then started learning English. In Sweden, we learn other languages very early. And so that already set its own track. And I knew I wanted to leave Sweden. Not because it's, a bad place in any sense of the world. I think it's, now having traveled, it's one of the best countries in the world. But the idea of having an international and a free career, having that freedom basically, and that I felt from very early on comes from languages, from English, from having an international exposure. So I went to an all English high school, and sort of 50% of us, more than 50%, continue abroad.
All English high school, as in you would speak only English?
Yes.
We learned curriculum.
Swedish in English.
Interesting.
So a lot of the materials and kind of off lesson talk would be in English, but then we would keep learning Swedish as such.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
And I have
I studied Spanish, but then Spanish was in English, not Spanish to Swedish. even though we
Oh,
were in
right. So like,
Sweden.
what was the translation and
Exactly.
such?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is that a common
Not at all.
thing in
There's
Sweden?
no very. I mean, there are few kind of high schools or institutions that do that. I first didn't want to do it, and then I said, okay, I'll just take the plunge and I'll learn it. And now at this point, there are most topics I can't describe them in Swedish anymore.
Same.
Just because I learned them first
Yeah.
hand in English, and that's it.
Yeah, like I've learned a lot of the business startup
Yeah.
tech vocabulary in English.
Yeah.
And I can't have, like, I had a couple of friends, even when we met at that event, there were two Romanians there,
Yeah.
business people, startup people, and they started talking to me in Romanian. Hey, Florin, ce faci? And I'm like, I'm good. Can we switch to English? Because like, if you ask me about my past and how I managed to get here in Romanian, I'm gonna sound illiterate.
Yeah. The worst is when you also translate expressions without realizing it.
Yeah.
Like I would translate English expressions, like not my cup of tea, and people were like, "No, what are you saying? We don't say that in Sweden."
And sorry for asking you questions about this, but I'm genuinely interested because I have one friend here in Brighton that's from Sweden, but I don't know much about Sweden in that sense. This drive to basically be in a sense, a global citizen and be free and go abroad and do stuff in other places, and is this something that is common in Sweden? Or because I'll give you an example, in my country it's not, like, in my country everyone leaves because they want to build a better life, want to build certain level of revenue and wealth to be able to build a better life for them in Romania.
Yeah.
But no one, I mean, not no one, there's people, but not many. The majority always want to return back home, and people don't feel that much that they fit in anywhere else than Romania. So it's kind of like, you don't find people being kind of like considering themselves global citizens. I do as well. Like, I don't have a specific place that I feel that organic attraction as a home place. I got used to UK, but like, I'm fascinated by a lot of places, and I can see myself living and calling home a lot of places.
And for a long time I kind of struggled with this, because everyone else seems to have this idea of, this is my home, this is my nationality, this is what my, but I really feel like in this day and age also we are kind of beyond that in some sense. I think the general acceptance is much higher than that. We are all in some sense global citizens, and I think it's about time that we should also think about that more. Like, the world is interconnected. Certainly we see it with climate change, with peoples, with wars, with everything. To think beyond just your home country or where you were born doesn't define you as such. And so I do feel Swedish, but I wouldn't necessarily say, okay, I'm the model Swede.
Yeah, I do think that with technology and with the evolution of the internet and all being, like you said, interconnected, that has somehow changed, where there's a lot more diversity in a sense in how we think and how we see each other. Although we're coming from maybe different traditions and different habits and so on. And I agree, in more metropolitan areas and cities, like, you don't really, like, here, or when I was living in London, it felt kind of like a lame question to ask someone, oh, where are you from? Because you have an accent, or it doesn't seem like you're from here, right? But I think in other areas it's still pretty much like a novelty. There's still areas that are quite deeply rooted nationalist, or just purely simply haven't had that much of a influx of connections and a touch with anyone else than your neighbor that has the same traditions and the habits and culture as you do. So I do think from a metropolitan perspective and so on, that's probably Yeah, you don't feel alien or as a stranger, but there are plenty of places on the globe that are still like that.
Yeah,
And
for
I
sure.
mean, I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. I don't want to get into politics and this and that, but at the end of the day, if there's an area that just wants to be the way they want to be and look upon people that are outsiders as outsiders, there are plenty of places where we can feel, because I'm the same, right? I don't think I felt very comfortable in Romania when I was back there, and as soon as I came to UK, I felt that I was a bit more connected with culture and people here, especially in London, Brighton, and such.
Yeah.
So from there, so you worked in Europe.
Yeah. So the
Whereabouts?
European Central Bank in Frankfurt.
In Frankfurt. Okay.
Yeah. I was there for a year, and then I got offered a role to come to London to work at Moody's, which is one of the credit ratings agencies. And again, I sort of followed two paths. One was this analysis of asset markets, looking at exchange rates, alternative assets, how those markets are moving. And then I had the fortune or misfortune to be the lead analyst on Brexit, which was another very interesting time.
You sound like you're the right person at the right time always.
Yeah,
because it feeds your curiosity and your
Exactly.
interest and such. Yeah.
Yeah, and this I mean, there was hard to tell a story necessarily of based on data and truth, but you're trying to predict what will happen, and then watching also the how things play out, basically. So I was looking at how that affects not just the UK economy but the European economy. So that was by far a really interesting time, and then it was basically at that time that I also started to get interested more in the real economy applications and into investment. And I ended up getting an offer to become an investment manager at this family office, where a little bit of the art started to sweep in professionally. And we'll get more into that later on, I suppose. But it was fundamentally looking at startups and building out the portfolio there. So really the application of that kind of analytical frameworks and thinking into looking at businesses. Again, because founders, as being an investor, then founders will obviously tell you the story. They have a connection with the business. They have their motivations for doing things. They have observed the problem. They're building the solution.
Yeah.
But what does the actual data tell you? Is there a market? What are your traction numbers and so forth? So that was an interesting application of my kind of analytical thinking into something that is very much real economy, innovation, and technology.
Now now I understand why your pitch deck was so pristine.
Well, thank you.
Because you've been dealing with pitches and investment decks for quite a while.
Yes, but it switches a lot when now I see it. It's incredibly hard to tell your own story.
Oh yeah.
Objectively. It's always very easy to judge someone else's work, which I mean you see as well now as an angel investor, that, and as opposed to when you were running things as well, and I mean you keep running things.
It's easy to tell someone what they're doing wrong. It's very difficult to tell yourself what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, but I think if you manage to kind of apply yourself or think about the questions that an investor might ask, or in my case, having been in that situation myself, that really helps to also prepare for that.
Yeah.
Because if you know, okay, what are they going to think? What are some of the dynamics of investing into startups? And what are the kind of hierarchies of, let me say, anything from traction metrics through to, what does good look like numerically? Then that really helps you as a founder.
It definitely does, and I think it does help you that you've collected so much experience in research and analysis and all of the things that you've done in the past, because that is one of the things that I think more often than not people lack, which is the ability to think analytical about their business and not emotional.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. That's because you go and, oh yeah, my thing is, I love what I'm doing. It's so great. This is a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And you completely ignore having to do market research, customer research, get feedback, and create this layer, this base layer that's based on data and raw information versus just your emotions and feelings and your friends' feelings about what you're building.
Which I think is where a lot of the problems of product market fit comes in, right? Because you think you're building this incredible solution to this problem that surely exists broadly and widely and has a big application. But if you haven't looked at the numbers backing that or reports or something beyond your friend circle, that's when you, I think, end up a lot of times in this kind of mismatch, really, because you're thinking you're doing something that has value, but actually the market doesn't see big value to it. And so that's what I always try to think, and that's where when I put on, because I still do some angel investing, that's the hat that immediately comes on first is, okay, what is the market opportunity and how much have you looked at that? And how much can I see there being a market that's growing for this business, and how much of it are you able to capture?
And it's also funny, like I've had three startup founders lately send me their pitch decks to review and give them feedback. And all three of them were missing the basically the market opportunity slide. And that to me feels the most generic and the first thing that you put in there. And sometimes I also kind of like eye roll when people just slap a graph of the market is 50 billion and not much of details around why and how is that an opportunity for you. But there's also a lot of people that just don't put that on, which is odd.
Yeah, because they expect it to be obvious in some sense, but obvious. Yeah, exactly.
Is it obvious? For them? Probably it's for them.
For them, it's obvious, but unless you're putting a number to it, I can see it's every product is nice in some sense, but are people gonna pay for it? Is there a market for it? That's very, very different.
I mean, I understand in setups where you're pitching to someone that is already deep into that specific market and industry. Like, for example, with us, with Atlassian ecosystem in the past, like if you would pitch to a vendor or a partner, Atlassian partner for funding, well, you don't need to put what's the market size and so on, because they are already in it and they know it better than you. But in general, if you're pitching to a group of investors or a single investor, don't expect for them to know much about that industry.
Exactly, which is why you need to put it there.
Yeah. So I'm curious, before getting into this family fund role, what was it that you liked and disliked? So one thing that you liked and one thing that you disliked about the job that you had prior to that.
I would say if we start from the things I liked is the analytical bit and being able to. So what I thankfully always and thanks to my superiors at the time, I had the freedom to kind of craft my own way. I was very atypical corporate and public institution kind of worker, while most people are quite segmented. I would run around and create my own little space to explore and run different kinds of projects. So I enjoyed that, and obviously the analytical bit, the nerdiness, and indeed that's something that I must confess I miss a little bit now, is the nerdiness of running assessments and running big data reports and stuff like this.
I'm curious, sorry to interrupt, I'm curious, with that, what some of those things led to? Did they lead to something? Did they lead to action where, we discovered this terrible thing or this amazing thing in data? Was it simply research and reporting? And was that research and reporting taken and done something with it, like produce change and stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, the big one was the Greek banks. I mean, that was all over the news after that. I mean, 500 million was a lot to add on to the capitalization. So that was a really big one. But then everything in the Brexit realm was big. I basically almost I almost took down the Norwegian housing market.
Single-handedly took down. Oh my god.
Yeah, because I ran a study on looking at housing market bubbles.
Yeah.
And Norway came out as a big one, and because that was done through Moody's, and obviously we have connections as an institution as Moody's. You'd have connections with various sovereign parties there, big banks and so forth, and it was like, what are you guys saying? What are you doing? Like, you need to like not do this right now. And that was an incredible journey to see your work having an effect, and that led eventually to some reforms and changing some of the landscape to adjust for these dynamics.
Well, yeah, that's always good. Like, we're joking and laughing here that you're crashing countries, economies, and so on. But fundamentally, is there's nothing much positive that can come off of bubbles.
Exactly.
Unless you're there to profiteer off of a bubble burst. There's not much that it can come out of tipping on the other direction once it happens and so on. But it's overall positive that we get to research, analyze, and fix ourselves as a financial civilization in a sense, and are able to adapt. Because imagine if the bubble never bursts.
Exactly. Right? It's gonna be much worse. The later on you find it, and I think that application is everywhere, right? So that's something I encourage every founder that I also speak with and work with is, okay, what is your data telling you? Because if your mind is set on it's gonna work this in this way because I know it, is not the same as if you have the data backing
from
it,
my
right?
experience.
Exactly.
Yeah, we all kind of do that quite a bit, which is
sure, yes, with human nature.
Yeah, and I'm annoyed with myself because sometimes I give advice from my experience and such.
Well, of course we do.
But I'm also I'm not that good when it comes to numbers, and I don't have a very analytical brain, right? So I talk a lot from my experience rather than saying, well, the numbers are like this, and based on research and so on. If you want to have that kind of conversation, I'm just gonna go and ask Nikki to come in the room, okay?
I'll just do a one man lecture.
Yeah. But so the other thing that I was curious. So it seems like it's you being involved in all of these major events, economical events, at the base of the research of some of these things. Is it strictly being in the right place at the right time, or is it that? Because what I'm wondering, to put a context here, is how did no other researchers and analysts came and said, Norway, you're screwed, right? Here's the data, and you were the first one to do that. Is it just because it was getting there and you were just assigned this project and you realized this thing out of the blue? Is it that there's not that much research in general and analysis in economies and finances in countries and so on? So why is that?
Well, I think it's also a bit like thinking about the startup journey. Like, how come you found this idea, right, and no one else is doing it? It's a bit the same. It's really the same question. And I think it comes from your investigation. So whether that investigation is qualitative, quantitative, in-depth, shallow, something has given you an idea that this is worth to explore, regardless of how you explore it. Something has given you a hunch that this is worth to explore. Then again, you do it qualitatively. I think this is the right business right now. This is the study I want to run. And if we're getting then to the kind of analytical work I was doing, then obviously you need to have the data that backs it. And there have been cases, where I was like, this is an observation I made. I want to investigate it. And then it turns out the data isn't strong enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to let it go. You have to see it go away.
That must suck
tough.
in a bit.
Yeah,
like,
that is tough.
It's you spend I suppose you spend a lot of time doing that, digging, and then realizing actually there's nothing here.
Yeah, but it's the same with the startup, right? So unless you're thinking about things like product market fit, you're gonna go down this hole that you are so sure of, and then at some point the data catches up with you because it's not there. The need of the market isn't there, or the demand of the market isn't there. You kind of catch up to that, and it's very much the same analogy in my mind. You think you've observed something, going to look at it and really think about it, really assess it, and then you see it's not solid enough. You have to let it go. You have to have, and I think that's the basis of what I hope to have, kind of intellectual honesty, right? With a lot of people, you refuse to shift your opinion when facing new data. And it is tough to do, but I think you have to be able to do it. Otherwise, as a founder, you don't survive. If you're not able to do that, you don't survive. Unless you are very right, and you can be right without not investing, but that would be luck.
It's like, I feel that, it's this gut feeling thing, which I never knew what to believe, what to think of it, right? Because, I've had things, the gut feel type of moments, and it turned out to be right. But I do feel that maybe is subconsciously collection of information that gives you a certain type of feeling.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
Deep down inside, you know that you've fleetingly overheard this, and you've done this homework research, but you don't directly in your mind connect it to this specific turn of events or decision making point. But that gut feel does come from somewhere, right? It will come from a collection of happenings that you might not put end to end and be so super analytical, as in, here's the ABCs and so on. But it's something that you already stored in yourself, and it expresses rather than thinking through a certain type of emotion. And probably, I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that goes into true innovation and to startup life, whichever side you're on, whether you're the founder or the investor. There is obviously a certain sense of uncertainty. You can't know or predict the future, and a lot of the best kind of businesses that we see out there are built on a hunch or an idea. Airbnb comes around and all the investors went, what do you mean people are going to couch surf? No way they're going to couch. There's no market. Well, fast forward a few years and, it's one of the major companies in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that it's the same with a lot of the disruptive markets. Most of... I'm going to say analysts now. I feel like I'm stinging you. Most of the analysts would have probably looked at it and said, it makes no sense. It makes zero sense. Don't do it. But then, there's that foolish, crazy person that does it, and they break through. But I also think that that's kind of like, people look up to so many disruptive founders and entrepreneurs out there, but the thing is, we don't see all of the others that were quite foolish and mad and failed and kind of like never got the opportunity to try again, or continue to fail with kind of like a foolish and rushed approach to trying to start stuff, right? But you see media with all of these, A-listers in terms of founders and how they were so crazy and no one believed in them and they made it happen, that you think, well, you have to be like that. I don't think that's the truth. I think most of us need to have a really well balanced, like I don't invest in crazy people. Sorry for calling crazy people, right? But like, there needs to be a certain level of maturity and kind of like spread in skills and aptitude, and less of that mad doctor type of traits, in a sense, because I look at that and I'm like, well, I know, because I've been there and I've tried that other side and I failed miserably several times. I know other people that failed as well. I want someone that I can see as potentially a really good character, that mature, that can deliver stuff. And it's not to say that no one should invest in crazy ideas and large, wild personalities that just go by their gut feeling and whatever they might be thinking in their brain when taking that decision. You should, because otherwise you wouldn't have the Steve Jobs and this and this and that of the world if no one would give them a dime or any attention. But
it's about the balance, right? So and for me personally, that filter is the data, because you can be crazy or not. The crazy that succeeds is the one that has data, be it the market, be it demand, that meets the crazy. So the crazy was right. Crazy not right is just foolish.
It's just crazy.
It's
crazy,
crazy.
Not right, it's crazy.
Full stop.
And it's sometimes it happens that you have someone that is a big personality and they have a kind of like the type of character that is not for everyone, but they also are a genius, and they basically take in consideration all of the variables, right? You also have the same type of person, but just completely ignoring data, and it just happens because they were in the right place
at the luck.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree. Well, we got into the founder and startup and business discussion. I just wanted to quickly go back to this just to finish the point. So you told me what you liked about that world. What was it that you didn't like, and was that these things that you didn't like that triggered you to move into startup world and kind of like art investment and such, or was it something else? Fully loaded question, sorry.
No, but I would say there is a line. I think the thing what I missed, whether it's a public institution or a corporate job, is the lack of reach and the lack of what you're doing having a direct impact. Like when you're in your corporate job or in a public institution, you are told to do stuff. Your role is like this. You do X, Y, Z, and you can take obviously satisfaction from that. But it's rare that you see the full chain of what you're doing and having a full implication of all the work you're doing. What I love about being a founder is I have a direct impact. Everything I do, I see it coming out immediately. On good and bad, right? Because on one hand, that means that I have to keep pushing myself. And if I keep pushing myself, things go better for the business, or we at least make progress. We learn something and we iterate on that. If I don't, you don't see that impact. So a bit of a double-edged sword, because on one hand, what I do miss from the corporate career is this point that basically if you wanted to, you could just coast for a week. Nothing's going to happen. You still collect your paycheck. But coasting for a week as a founder, you start to see the implications.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, just give it until because we were talking about this earlier, about that I I'm not a fit to run a company that's 100 500 people and making X amount of money. Just wait until you reach that point, because then you'll be the founder, the personality, the face of it, and you have an entire team to do stuff and analysts and brains to figure out how to take the business further in terms of the leadership team, and you'll be able to coast it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're gonna enjoy that much that role. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Well,
maybe
I
not,
guess
I don't know.
from our conversation before, you didn't.
I didn't.
I mean,
no.
that was
I would.
your
I mean,
exit point, basically.
Yeah, I don't think it's that I didn't, because I don't think I've been in that position at the absolute purest of that type of position, because I've never had a company that was 100 or 500 people and making tens of million per year or per month in revenue. So I haven't been there, but I've know people and I've seen people and I've seen companies that size, and I'm like, I don't think that's for me.
Yeah.
And I guess you'll find out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm now kind of like really believing in your business, right?
I'm glad to.
Because I'm not even saying maybe. Okay, you'll get there.
I hope so. Knock on wood.
yeah, true. So how did you get to Artscapy?
Yeah, so the art from the basic of, okay, someone is very analytical, very black and white numbers. Okay, the truth. It seems far off the art, but I think that comes into one, the curiosity and this connection of worlds, and I mean, while numbers fascinate me as a professional, the art is enormously influential for me, kind of mentally. It helps me understand the world, get new impressions, open my mind, and so the art has always been a personal interest. I'm zero creative. My creativity is.
So you can't paint a painting.
No, I can barely do a stick figure. Like that's about.
Maybe you should do it. Who knows? Maybe that's going to be worth a ton of money in the future.
Yeah. No, it's no, but I'm zero creative myself. But I love art and how it can tell a story. So for me, the point that you can bring up so many mental states, impressions, connections from like a 50 by 70 piece of paper is astounding to me, and that has, you can draw historic connotations, political, social, in a single image is what fascinates me a lot, and how art connects people, connects worlds, tells stories of the present, of the past, and how artists, they're really your social scientists. They I mean, if anyone is going to predict the future, they do. They see things before they become a big thing, and I think that's fascinating.
Why do you think that is? Where does it come from?
Because that's I think part of great artists are very acutely watching the world. For good or bad, they tend to
and
often
reflecting
exactly,
and kind of like this kind of like thinking, deep thinking, deep artistic.
That us normal humans don't do. They do, and on several levels deeper, and then they transfer that into a visual language.
There's a word for that.
There is, yes.
When you think, when you're sat and you think quite deeply about the future, I don't know what the word is.
We'll
we'll put it on the screen.
Or someone can put it in comments.
Yeah, even better. You see, you're good at social media, social media engagement. What type of art is it that you find is most impactful to how you feel and how the type of thoughts and emotions that bring up for you? Like, is there a specific type that you feel that's most impactful?
Yes. So also that is, once you start to look at art and a bit like I get from you, is this kind of curiosity, right? So you are into also the audio, the visual, like understanding that. For me, it's been very similar journey into the art. So the more you start to look at it, you start to also appreciate and understand your own fascination with it. What attracts you, what interests you. That kind of develops also the collection. And so at this point, our collection is basically across 3 strands. So one is the environment, so commentary on the environment, climate change, this sort of thing. Social political, so political works, and then finally the construction of the self. So what are the moments that we go through that define us? How does this idea of the I or the self or our place in the world, what are the things we go through in shaping that? Which sounds very, very esoteric and very big, but there are artists that are
It does, though.
capturing this.
I think maybe in the kind of like day-to-day kind of like 9 to 5 working, living your life, and this kind of like repetitive pattern of a life, you don't necessarily, but that sounds like something
But that's where the art comes in for
Yeah.
me, because that's what it gives me. That's the commentary, that's the self-reflection, that's that captured in a visual state and transmitting these kind of messages, which is what I find so fascinating. So those are kind of the 3 main strands. We also don't collect any artists that aren't alive. Like, the collection has to be a contemporary.
On the platform, you mean?
No, personal.
Or
My
you,
personal.
okay.
My personal. Now I'm talking only about my personal
Right.
collection.
How come?
Because for me, the collection has to be a reflection of my time. Like, as much as I think artists like Warhol or Basquiat, Picasso, all these guys, obviously from different time frames, as much as I admire them and I think they have artistic quality, I didn't personally live through those times. So I wasn't in the riots and mayhem of New York in the 70s.
Interesting.
So I don't feel like I can or should preserve that part. I would like to tell the story of the world that I lived through.
But do you find that that's because some of the people that I meet, and I don't know a lot of art collectors, right? Some of the people that I met are really deeply rooted in that feeling of owning stuff that
Yes.
isn't from today, that was back then, that
Yeah.
was in this era, in this century, and so on, and they're infatuated with that, right?
Yeah.
With keeping and preserving those type
Yeah,
of
yeah.
art and collectibles and things like that were from back in the day. So I found it really fascinating that
Yeah.
because I've never met someone that's like, well, I relate to today's, and I feel the responsibility of collecting and preserving art that's created today in my time.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, and for sure there are different categories of collectors, of investors. There's a whole argument then to what goes into kind of what is good art, what is investable art, and that's also the kind of bridge or intersection where Artscapy plays, because your art is your wealth in some sense. And what I always say is, art is anyway the only kind of asset that yields twice. I mean, it yields on our walls as an intellectual stimulus, as something that broadens and opens the mind, with the potential to also benefit your wallet.
Yeah.
As if you're buying good stuff, there is a potential to increase in value, and therefore it becomes.
Well, there also like cars collections,
Yep.
and there's
Yep.
there's cars that appreciate in value over time and so on. So I think cars are a good.
Yeah,
I mean,
all
not
the-
all,
all
all
those
cars. Like my car outside probably depreciated like 10K since I bought it a couple of months ago. So no. I think it's
but
just
with all the collectible assets,
Yeah.
that's what comes in, and in general in the alternative space, right? It's also where some kind of personal passion is meeting the financial aspect or the wealth aspect of it.
Yeah, and with your platform, what kind of art is just traditional art that you basically look at and you're investors and the users of the platform look at, or what? How does it work?
So the platform is free to the users. So we have people who are using Artscapy also for antiques, for
So you can add anything,
any kind of collectible, really. It is built first and foremost for art. That's where we are starting from. We are totally medium agnostic, so we have people who are putting NFTs, digital art. They're kind of keeping track as a record keeping, and checking the value and so forth. But then otherwise we have sculpture, paintings, prints, any kind of art. So we don't say it's only for this, it's only contemporary. Right. I mean, it's from all kinds of.
So the platform is a record keeping platform in a sense for art collectors and investors and so on. What are some of the features? What's some of the stuff that you can do with the platform as an art collector / investor?
Yeah. So I would say Artscapy is like a bank account, but for art. So imagine. So I even tend to say we're sort of the Revolut of art. So in the sense, imagine how Revolut and the likes of Revolut are where places where you manage your financial assets. You kind of keep track of them over time. Yeah. You see the composition. You can access further service. You can trade. You can have your stocks or whatever. It's essentially stock portfolio, but for art. So you have your catalog of your art. You store your invoices, authentication certificates. But then you also have all the services. So basically, with one click, you insure a work, you can value the works, you also access the financing solution. So using the art as collateral, so getting money back on the art.
All of this happens on your platform?
Yes.
You must have invested a lot of time, energy, and money to build a platform that does all of this stuff. Can you also sell your art? So you do the transactions between buyer and
full
seller?
Full brokerage. We do auction consignment. So say you came to me and say, okay, love what you're doing, but I want to sell through Philips or Sotheby's or what have you. Well, we can do that for you as well. So we do that for our collectors. We do private brokerage. If you want to be private, if you want to put it publicly, you can do that as well. So I think in some sense we're also the first to really facilitate true peer-to-peer trading among collectors, and that goes back also to the very archaic nature of the art market, where things have been under digitalized for so long that you have some really obscure market dynamics, juicy margins that are in some sense needless and what people don't like anymore. And so we are offering a way to do that in a more efficient and I think savvier way.
That is a lot of, I didn't realize, I've seen your pitch and all this stuff. I didn't realize how much you packed in Artscapy.
So it's not that good in the end. I have room to improve the pitch.
Well, sitting down and talking through a bit more in detail about it, it makes more sense. I also think that there's the first time when you pitch to someone, right? There's a lot of information thrown at you in one, right? So you're trying to kind of like, oh, what's the valuation? Oh, how are they doing here?
Yeah.
And some of the details might be forgotten or omitted in one's brain, right?
Yes.
What has been which part of your many parts business has been the most challenging to implement?
Most challenging to implement. I mean, so we've been quite fast in just doing. I think one thing that we've been very good at, and that's big thanks to my co-founder, is being fast at implementing things and testing them in the market. I think the thing that is the most difficult, but it's mostly because you're getting into regulated territory, is, let me say, the more hardcore financial services for which you need to be regulated, and therefore that needs to be a much longer, much more considered journey to do. And that's something we're still just kind of starting out with. So that's where, but that's also where I mean, one of the key goals of mine as a founder of Artscape is legitimatizing art as an asset class. So people are putting a lot of money.
It's not considered an asset.
No, it's an unregulated market, which is why you have.
So wait, so if you have a I don't know, let's say a Monet painting in your house that's worth 10 million, is it not considered an asset?
Not formally. So there's.
So you can't leverage on it or anything like that.
You can. So there's specialized providers that do that, and that's something that we're starting
not,
to do.
Not, for example, you can't go to a regular bank and get a loan based on your
they typically,
painting.
No.
Interesting. I didn't realize that.
Big banks will have a department that will do that. The big banks tend to start from sort of 5 million and up, which your everyday collector usually doesn't have.
Right.
Which is where we're coming in and sort of as well to look at eventually. But no, yeah, it's a totally unregulated market, which means there's quite a bit of misleading information, a lot of lack of transparency is hidden in this kind of elusive language that what we're hoping to make a difference.
A lot of sharks, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if it's not regulated, and if you're mainstream and high street banks and financial institutions don't offer services around it, then, more often than not, what happens is, you get kind of like these sharks that want to make a lot of, let's say, a lot of profit out of your say need in a sense.
Yeah. No, but even on just the seller side, so this is where I basically lose my mind as a financial analyst is when I see these other sellers, also galleries. They're essentially, we're calling them internally sort of investment galleries. They're proposing art as an investment, even though it's unregulated, and they're showing, obviously because they can, there's no one's going to stop them. They're showing very selective data saying, okay, I have this artist X, he went from 100 to 50 in 2 years, and now I'm selling you artist Y, which for whatever reason is going to be similar to artist X, you should buy from us. And this is kind of the rhetoric, and there's no checkup, there's no... You're just using that as a tactic to sell your inventory.
You must, your skin might crawl, because you're like, where's the data? You're just selling it from what you're saying that's worth or such.
Yeah. And so we are speaking to collectors every day who are like, oh yeah, but I've been promised this artist Y, and we're like, okay, let's look at it then. Sure. Do you like this? First and foremost, do you like this artist? That's unlike other kind of investment classes, and I think common across the collectible space is, do you like this asset in general? So
very true.
You should, first rule of collecting is you buy only things that you like. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, it's a long-term investment, so you're not gonna hang something on your wall that you don't like or don't agree with. So that's kind of the rule number one. But then it's understanding a bit of the background to it. So if you're looking at it as an investment class, there has to be signs of market potential. You have to be able to bring in some kind of objective measure. So look at, okay, what's the secondary market of this artist? How is she doing at auctions? How is it being recognized by the wider establishment? Does it have a place in art history? There's a lot of these factors that these investment galleries tend to like to not talk about, and that leads people off of the wrong track. While if you think about traditional wealth management services or other assets, you wouldn't even be allowed or able really to do that.
Yeah.
But because there is no oversight, it's a wild west.
Do you think it's ever going to be regulated?
I think so. And I mean, I hope so. So we're now hopefully in conversation with the FCA to start to do that. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that.
Are you gonna disturb disrupt yet another economy and market?
I promise I'll stop after that.
But I think,
I
yeah,
think it's healthy. I think
yeah, oh
that's
yeah,
where it needs to go. I think there's a lot of consumer protection and a lot of wealth that can be created in that way, and support of cultural production, which is the first and foremost reason that I collect, that needs to come into it. And I think that's the kind of disruption, if you, I hate the word disruption, but the kind of change that we're hoping to drive.
what do you think is going to happen to the value of art once that happens? Once basically it gets
Yeah, I think you see it already. So what the difficult part of art is that it's not it's not the objective thing of what it is, because a paper is a paper. Now there are obviously a high quality paper, there are high quality paints, oil, whatever, but that's not the inherent value. The inherent value is the intellectual output that goes into the work. Well, you wouldn't really say the same thing about a car. So there
yeah,
are
true.
objective measures. Okay, the 0 to 60 in so much time, this kind of cylinder, this and that.
Not all of
That are
them. Like
like,
there's a lot of collectible cars that have a sentimental and also intellectual meaning, because this specific driver personality
yes, exactly,
owned
exactly.
it, and this
The
happened with the
design, and
car
yeah,
and so on,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
not necessarily specs, but most of it, yeah, you're right.
It's a lot of anyway, and even watches. There's a lot of the engineering that
Yeah,
you're basically paying for, the lightness of material and so forth. The art isn't the same, so there
yeah,
comes, and that's where kind of guidance, context, um, using some information and tools, and doing your research beforehand comes into play. And that's kind of what we're hoping to do also with Artscape, is guiding people on this path.
yeah.
Because I've seen too many people who have been misled, and then they come to us and say, okay, well, I can't sell this piece now. And we say, yeah, I'm very sorry, but I think it's been oversold to you in the very first place, and we will help you try to find a collection that kind of stands the test of time, if you will. That's what we're hoping to do.
Right. And how would you be able to, is this something, so the market being regulated, right? The arts market being regulated, um, it has been like kind of like moral benefits in a sense, right? Does it have any specific benefits for your business, right? Or would it positively or negatively impact your business? Would you have certain features to think about implementing once that happens? Have you ever thought about that? What would happen?
If it was more
Yeah.
regulated, I think it would benefit, because that's what we're hoping to do, is do things in the right way, focus on the client. So by not representing ever any artist or any gallery, we don't have any affiliation with any kind of seller, whether it's the producer or the representative. That frees us from any kind of bias and lets us focus just on the client.
Right.
And so if we're doing that, and we're doing it in the right kind of framework, in a landscape that is regulated, I think that can only benefit us, because we have then the groundwork set for that, to help to kind of steer people on this journey.
Well, that makes sense, and probably less drama and headaches for you
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, less crying after investment galleries.
Yeah. Um, how big is your team today?
Yeah, we're sort of 11 people.
And how do you distribute that? Do you have part of your team that are product marketing? How does it work? How do you basically build a business that combines art and technology in the same time?
Yes. So that's an interesting question. That's a very good question. So for us, that has been always vital in building Artscape. So neither myself nor my co-founder do we ever pretend to have come from the art, but we don't have the technical background in terms of academically in the art world, in the art market. I know the art market quite well as a collector and from my own kind of studies and curiosity and so forth, and now building a sizable collection. But it's been very important to us to have anyone who's in a commercial role, commercially facing, to have come from the art world.
Yeah, that has the connections, the network, all
But
of
also
that.
the understanding, right? So we
Yeah.
need to be sure that we do things with this intellectual integrity. Otherwise, we are nothing, especially in a world as the art market, which is, you need to know the context.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it goes off, and that's what I've seen with a few of kind of competitors, because you see the opportunity of the art market is interesting, but then they don't know anything about art, and you will put very discordant kind of categories
Yeah.
and representations. So that's always been important. We didn't apply the rule team wide, because finding a developer that's also from the art market narrows the field too much.
Probably. Well, it sounds like you're basically a proper true misfit in a sense. 'Cause
Yeah.
you're not coming from this background, from this industry. You like it as a collector.
Yeah.
But you've not really had a history with that. And that's, this is one of the things that I've learned recently is some investors put too much accent on the founder being ingrained in the market and industry, but and I used to do that as well, but that's not. I think if you're the right type of founder that has the right type of attitude in growing a business, like you said, you hire people, you get people, you talk to people, you get mentors, you get a variety of people around you that give you that confidence to drive the ship in the right direction, right? But yeah, I feel that I'm smiling sometimes when I meet people that are coming from a completely different background and hopped in a different industry, because I know how it feels, right? It can feel like a bit of an imposter.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially in the arts world. I feel that people are in a certain type of, how should I put it, level of acceptance when it comes to outsiders and such. But it sounds like you're heading the right direction. And
I would say on that, I mean, I think an important thing is the idea of kind of founder product fit or founder market fit, but that doesn't necessarily have to mean that you've worked in that space. You really need to understand the product and or the market. So what we've done here is, I mean, and really Artscapy actually started almost as a hobby project. So we were fed up as collectors of information being so discordant, so fragmented, not really centered on collectors. So we built something initially that we thought we would just share with some of our equally nerdy collector friends. And then the more we started digging into it, because we were happy, both us as founders, we were in our corporate careers, we were doing our thing, art was the passion, and that's it. We started to build this platform, which was going to be this little cute thing. Saw that it's a huge market. The data came in and told us that there's something more to this.
Yeah.
And the more we started to build the idea, the more people said, you're sitting on something big, you need to do this. And then basically everything exploded. We left our corporates, and then we pursued it full time.
So it's not like you left your job and then scratched your heads for a while. What are we gonna do? Oh, this sounds like a cool idea.
I'd love to be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
It wasn't like that.
So and it sounds like very similar path like Nikki and I, because Nikki and I started Jigsaw because we wanted to fix a problem internally with our own work as full-time employees. And then as we dug deeper into the data research and such,
Yeah.
we realized that there's not much of this problem solving in the Jira world. So we decided to build it, and then we spent another year getting ingrained in the ecosystem and that market, and realized we really love this. We want to focus on it full time. But again, it sounds like it's kind of the same a gradual progression towards
Yeah.
that, while you also gained a lot of knowledge and experience with how the art market works.
Yeah, and equally as you guys, you had an insider understanding
Mm-hmm.
of the market, of the application, and therefore there is that kind of founder product, founder market fit, which I think is vital, and which is what I like to look for, or try to understand when I speak to founders. What's their personal connection with it?
So you're coming from a corporate world, and Artscapy is your first business, your first founder business, is it? Did you had anything else before?
We did kind of start a crypto exchange
Right.
in the heydays of 2017.
2017,
Yeah,
when it
that
was hot.
Oh yeah, man! If that would have worked out, I probably wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Well, you'd be like, who? Biro, Misfit Founders, who? Huh.
Yeah. No, I mean we had everything set up. It was gonna be a crypto exchange. It was really nice. Like we were literally moments from go live, until our partner, who was running their business in Ethereum at the time, were wiped out in the market correction, and so they went out of business overnight essentially. So, and because we were still obviously in our corporate jobs when we were thinking about this, when we were doing everything on the side. So we were going to launch it, obviously see that it's going to do well, and then you jump out.
That is crazy.
Sort of. And then that was it. So
how much time and energy have you invested in that?
quite a bit. I mean, if it was the gold rush, right? Like if we have to say a big gold rush, I think, of our generation has been, or is still in some sense, the crypto world. And there was a lot of money to be made in that, and especially these kind of financial products, exchanges, and so forth. But also a lot of crash and burn.
Well, I think nowadays, 2024, a lot of people have been burned so much that
badly.
I feel that even investors, when they hear crypto project, it's not anymore the cryptocurrency. Yes, I'll invest all my money into your project. But how much time you personally invested in getting that platform to a point where you were just about to launch in months or?
I mean, it was a good over 6 months. I would say that we were like heavily invested, working a lot, like outside of office hours, going to meetings on the weekend, and kind of doing the designs and thinking and company structure, business modeling and stuff like this. So it was a let me say a blow in that sense, but you also learn from that. So then it's okay, be careful who you're working with, who's your supplier. Because if you want to be quick to market, you need good partners, good suppliers, but they need to also be stable. You need to be able to detach from them. What is your IP? I mean, this is a whole kind of discussion on its own, but that really showed me that, like, okay, you have to be very careful with who helps you kind of build stuff, or who's your whichever part they're helping with.
Yeah, that's you're 100% right with that, because the last thing, it's great when you can say, well, I have a team of 3-4 as my co-founding team, and this person has these skills and I have that skills, and this person has the finances and this, but you're kind of like bottlenecking in a sense, because it's only that person that can do that thing, and then it's only that person that has the finances. So what happens if they just decide to step back?
Yeah, exactly. And especially because none of us are hardcore technical founders. So my co-founder is much more, I mean, he understands really software development. I mean, he's not a developer himself, but he understands it at depth. But when you are not yourself the developer, being able to judge that and understand also how any supplier works, or what's their, in this sense, it was also how they were structured, and how how they were running that business, that wasn't right on. But in general, no, you need to anyway kind of understand how do they work, how's the product being delivered.
Did you not look for alternatives? Because you said, like your partner, just like it was that situation with stuff. Did you, given that you were about to push the button to launch, did you not try to be like,
let's say
where can we find the money?
Well, they didn't do that for free. So we obviously invested our money to get this prototype up running, and I think at that point we got very fatigued.
I get it.
And because there was this really, really strong market correction. I don't know how much you were looking at cryptos at the time, but there was a lot of losses, and you saw there was one of the big wake-up calls. Obviously, crypto has had its ups and downs, even much before that as well.
Was it in 2017?
Yeah.
When that happened, was it when those big wallets crashed? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a couple that just shut down, and
but like Ethereum, Ripple, all of the big coins at the time, big, not bit, but also bit, came crashing through the floor. It was a very big correction. And and people, and it was the wild west. People were doing ICOs and playing with money all over. So I think in some sense it was also good that it didn't happen. So I think
it would have been a wild ride.
Yeah.
Because this has been a wild ride up until recently.
Yeah.
So you might have been a lot older.
Yeah.
By this point.
Yeah, exactly.
With all of that. But in the same time, it could have also potentially been like super big.
Yeah.
But no, I understand if you put.
But that's what I love now. Like it's more. So this is my passion, right? So crypto was a pure opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not particular. Like I think there's a very sound applications of blockchain. So blockchain, the technology is great, and a lot of the applications are can really have the potential to make a big impact on our society in many fields, but it's not something that I'm burning about.
Yeah,
like the fascination obviously is there, the curiosity is there, but it's not the thing that I kind of love in that sense. While art is my passion, and now I made it basically into my business.
That's what you like. That's what you need, right? So you're in a good position to do that, right? Like I feel like I'm now in a good position to do the same thing and focus. We were talking about this.
Yeah.
And it's, if the more you can wake up in the morning and start working, and it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like this again.
Yeah.
And you wake up with a passion and with energy, the better.
Yeah.
It's never gonna be perfect. So you're always gonna have those days of eye roll, especially with art. What do you call it? Art.
Like investment
galleries.
Art galleries. The investment galleries.
The investment galleries.
Galleries,
especially with those, because they sound a drag. But yeah, it seems like you're working in the environment that you want to. How much, because you touched on this before, how much do you still practice of your an analysis, research, and deep dives into data and information nowadays?
Yes, I'm quite excited because at this stage of Artscapy's journey, I mean, now we're sort of over 3 years since we incorporated.
Okay.
We have almost 7,000 collectors on the platform.
Oh,
We're
wow.
starting to have data finally, which means I get to kind of run with that a bit. So we're kind of launching some series of analytical content.
Customer
Really,
success and all of that stuff type of
yeah, but also
points.
thinking about, okay, when is the without becoming obviously investment advice, but how much can we look at artworks with tangible insights and applications for collectors or investors? It's especially when you're starting out, when you don't know what to look at, what you want to buy, and especially if you're buying, I mean, so people who are investing in art tends to be across the spectrum, right? So it's kind of from pure passion to pure opportunity, right? The financial or wealth opportunity. And most collectors are somewhere in the middle, all right, because it's an important financial transaction.
Yeah.
Anything else, I think, will be foolish to say. But so you're looking across this spectrum, and how can I help you make the sound choices? Again, building a collection that's going to last over time, and a bit of rolling the car off the sales parking lot. Which, how can I help to guide you? Which is the car to kind of collect that isn't gonna lose 40% the moment you roll off the curb? It's a bit the same that we're thinking about in terms of the art. So what are the things that are adding kind of value, that are going to retain its value, that have liquidity as such as an asset class, right? Because otherwise you can buy it for the pure passion of it, but if you're wanting to kind of retain value, that needs to be something that is considered. And that's a bit the part that the analytics is getting into, also telling the story of the art market from the collector standpoint, which is something I'm really intrigued by.
How much the collector and investor words interlock? Let me explain why I'm asking this, because in my mind, a collector is super passionate about that piece of art and acquires it not with the intent of selling it for profit, right? Necessarily, right?
Yeah.
When I think collector is someone that collects, not gives away, right?
Yeah.
In my mind,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Whereas an investor, investing in something with the purpose of generating profitability at a later stage,
Yes.
right? That's what we investors do most of
Yeah.
the time, right? How in the arts world, how kind of like tight these two definitions are, or do you also see a lot of collectors that have absolutely no interest in the monetary value and the monetary value growth of that piece of art in the future, and also investors that maybe they like or don't like the art, but they see it as a valuable asset that they can profiteer from at a later stage?
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting bits about the art market is that it's almost taboo to talk about the investment angle in general,
Really?
because it should be for the passion. But then,
Right.
sure, passion, but then if I'm buying something for 10K, that is a sizable amount for anyone. 1K is a sizable amount. But that's the kind of ranges that we're often playing with. You can buy great quality work. So the price versus quality doesn't have to be always in lockstep. You can find amazing works that are much more affordable than that, of course. But you are still playing with a high value item. So that's why I say complete disregard for the price and its ability to retain that value is just foolish, in my opinion. Because maybe and it's just going unsaid, right? Everyone is thinking it, but no one is saying it. And I'm not necessarily saying, okay, we should all say it. It's just, if it's on all our minds, why don't I help you see it? So that's where the analytics comes in. That's why also, I mean, that's why the whole bank account analogy comes in, right? I'm helping you understand your portfolio and how it's developing over time, the value of the works, building something that lasts. So while, and I don't necessarily, and I don't collect necessarily for with an intent. I built quite a big collection at this point. We've sold 2 works, and I miss both of them. I probably will
They're
rebuy
expensive.
them.
Did you make a profit?
Yes, the sale was to finance other acquisitions, which is what I wanted to do at the time. But I still miss them. There's a very strong kind of
Sentimental attachment.
yes. But what you don't want to do is lose value. And a lot, and unfortunately, a lot of times what we see, not all of them, and I'm not going to name any names, but a lot of times what we see with these kind of investment galleries is they'll use this kind of art as investment language as a sales agenda, but then because it's not backed by solid market analysis and understanding, okay, where's the liquidity of this artist, and thinking about art as a regulated asset, as you would within a regulated asset, you do see cases where it does come off the parking lot 40% less. So someone trying to sell it a couple of years later, it's very difficult, and or it's not really possible unless at a loss. And that's what we're hoping to kind of clear out the forest, if you will, to add some clarity to that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And regulate the goddamn art. I'm saying that, yes. But like I'm just listening. I know nothing about the art industry, so I might be saying something very controversial saying regulate it. Goddamn it!
But wouldn't you also feel more safe as an
Me
outsider?
too. Yes, but that's what I'm saying.
If you knew that people had to abide by certain standards.
Yeah. Of course, 100%, and that's why I'm saying it from my perspective. Just listening to the reason and the kind of like the motives behind why that would need to happen, and I completely agree. If I would go into, that's why I've been staying away from crypto for quite a while. I've tried a couple of things in the past, but like recently, it's just because it's not regulated. The entire thing is a massive, excuse my language, type of show.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You put money, and they say, oh, don't invest money that you can't lose. But at the end of the day, you don't want to just throw money away. If I want to throw money away,
it's the same with the art, right?
I'll
so
just
you want
put it here in the
exactly
fireplace and stuff. So it's the same, I suppose, the same with art, right? You don't, because it would be very daunting for me to get into art, because I don't know much about artists and this and that. But even if, like we were talking about cinema, film gear, and me investing in a lot of this, the market for this is so big and established, and there's so many manufacturers that kind of like compete with each other, and it becomes like a spec thing and a brand thing and so on. But there's these traits that are really well established, and that the price to value ratio is most of the time there, and you have a lot of people to talk you through. But it's that because of the competition of the products making and the manufacturers and so on, which is different than regulating a market, which it's not specs based, that we were talking earlier and so on. Around a regulated market that is not spec based and is pure thoughts and people's opinions and how they interpret that piece of art. But if you don't regulate it, then you might buy something that 2 people, 3 people tell you that that's a really good investment, and it's actually not, because 5 years down the line you lost half of your money.
So luckily enough, anyway, what's interesting to see is that the market anyway guides you to showing what is what is good. Like a lot of the analytics I'm looking at now is, I'm controlling for a lot of the same variables. So we're looking at Damien Hirst, for example, one of the biggest living artists, British artist, and I can look at artworks that are very similar produced by him, and I can see which one was more popular, which one has performed better. So the market tends to also reflect the taste. And there is a reason certain works sell very high at auction or in any other, sell very high full stop, is because they have inherent value, and that is, what are you adding to art historic conversation, commentary? How much are you touching on this topic? What have other people said on this topic before you? There's a lot of, obviously, being the first to do something is about pushing boundaries, and how much are you able to do that in your artistic practice, and that is what's going to be rewarded.
Yeah.
And it's enough to either have that curiosity yourself or be willing to go on this dive, and you start to entangle, and also just even from an outsider perspective, you start to see what are the trends, what are the artistic movements. If you're curious, if you're wanting to understand why this artwork sold high, you will be able to start to pull out certain characteristics.
Yeah. But with an asterisk, you need to have a bit of that analytical and research focus
yes.
Mindset in a sense.
But I would say that for any investment, right?
Yeah,
that's why I think art is an investment class. But just like you wouldn't just say, okay, I'm gonna invest in ABC stock because I like the sound of ABC. Who doesn't like ABC? It's the beginning of the alphabet, what have you. If you don't know, okay, and then you realize they're loss making, they're over indebted. There's the CEO is off in Hawaii. Like, if you don't do your research with any asset, you're gonna be making mistakes.
Yeah, true. But I think people need to understand that art, in order for people not to get kind of like a bit just taken away by what I'm missing the bloody saying. What's the saying? Swept away, let's say, swept away by the market and by beautiful pieces and this and that. Yes, you should have the emotional connection, but I can see how easy it is in the art world, as not being a kind of like regulated and a kind of like a investment market, in a sense, regulated investment market, how you can start getting swayed into certain pieces that are quite risky.
Yeah.
They might be beautiful to you, they might have a sentimental attachment, absolutely. But you might just invest in it and never even think about, let me research this artist, let me figure out what this means, where am I buying it from, who are these people, and so on.
But that's where these kind of objective measures come in. So you start to say, okay, did he or she go to an art school? Do they have the technical background? Because part of it is also the craftsmanship itself, you understanding as an artist of art history. Like, did they study art? What kind of group or solo shows have they done? With which kind of galleries? Which gallery is representing them? Have they been collected by institution? Can I find this artist in the collection of the Tate? Or of have they been in the Royal Academy? Are they a Royal Academician? Those start to be abstracted from the taste. Like, do I like this piece or not? Doesn't matter. If this artist, you're looking essentially at their CV in some sense. You're also investing in the artist.
Yeah.
That's also what you're doing by supporting kind of the cultural production. You're supporting the artist by becoming a collector, by becoming an investor, which is what I like as well, that there is a very strong philanthropic angle as well to it. It's not you're not collecting a share certificate as
Yeah,
a stock
true.
investment. You hang it on your wall like
Hey,
this.
nothing wrong with share certificates for stock in startups, okay?
No, more stock certificates on walls, please. Yeah, so I think that we touched quite a bit on the kind of the blue ocean idea and this idea of building a startup, which I think is interesting, and especially for us, this idea of building something where there wasn't something before, like defining, and in some sense, I think that's part of innovation, and like
Yeah.
this idea of, okay, you have wealth management, you have art, you have the wider kind of collectible passion asset space, and then merging into one, it becomes like uncharted territory.
So you haven't had any kind of like North Star in terms of samples or other companies that have done this, other people that have done this in the past, or competitors or anything like that?
So I don't want, I think no founder should ever say there aren't competitors. There are competitors, but the same way that we're doing it, which is focused on the collector at this kind of product depth. So you do have players that do, let me say, your portfolio management or collection management. You do have obviously valuers who just do artwork valuations. You have, of course, insurance, but you don't have anyone who's done a sort of digital platform, the thinking behind a lot of these kind of wealth management principles, financial principles into art and art management, and treating art as an asset class.
And how does that, when you explain to leads and to potential partners and so on, the what you're building and what your business is, what's the reaction? The reason why I'm asking is because the dangers of it can be a danger or a blessing in a sense, of getting into this blue ocean type of space where this new thing that hasn't been done at this type of setup and so on before, is there's a danger of people not really understanding what is it that you're building and offering, or on the polar opposite, people will be like, have that aha moment, oh, how on earth did we not have this up until now?
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned exactly that, because it's really like that. A lot of people don't understand it, which I think has been one of the key challenges, I think, of this founder journey is exactly this, is that you kind of get it at the surface. You think it's a very esoteric niche. It's not a big market. Who are all these people who are interested in art? But then you start to look at it, you start to develop this, and you see people allocating part of their income or their wealth into art. It's also an impact investment for a lot of people. But that hurdle of getting over people to understand it has been a really big challenge. But that's where we're trying to also, where it helps to do kind of comparisons. So that's where, when I start to say things like, oh, it's like a bank account for art, you start to have images, and those images are quite close to what we actually are. So I start to help to frame it. And I think for anyone who's building or are in this kind of space where they feel like they're doing something very different from what's been before in a different way, is this idea also of the comparisons, helping to paint the pictures. And we've iterated a lot on that. I mean, I think in a very pure sense, we're also sort of an operating system for a collector. Like all the services, like we're sort of your Microsoft for collectors, because you have all these attachments, right? So it's not just a bank account, because then you have the services, you have the advisory, you have these other attachments to it. But still this idea of, okay, it's my financial platform, it's my bank account, it's my Revolut for art. You start to understand it. And so that's kind of how we've gone through a few cycles of trying to iterate exactly on how do we define it, how do we help people understand it. And I don't know if we've yet arrived there. I think that's an ongoing thing, and it's about understanding what does the investor, the person you're speaking to, what are they going to resonate with. Then on the flip side, every collector or someone who is looking at art that have seen Artscapy has been like, wow, how have this not happened before? And that's when you are happy as a founder. That's when you're like, okay, we're doing something that that resonates, and and then you start to get kind of unsolicited feedback. I love what you're doing. I saw the new release. It looks so much better.
I love that.
Yeah, you're just like, oh, this is what I live for.
You need to make those people advocates.
Turning them into
platform.
ambassadors. Yeah,
exactly. No, but that is one of the most. That's a cliche. What did you just said now? It's a cliche, right? Which is every founder that has an idea that's and that have implemented a very complete package of a product in a space that's not so familiar, right? Because it's a different thing that if you say, well, I have a digital office type of suite of tools like Google Suite,
yeah,
right?
or
like
an HR SaaS,
or that, yeah. So it's different, but the challenge is, how do you give that aha moment to with your value proposition, while also not completely losing the basically what is it that thing is, right? The product that you're building. And in the past, I've been so pulled into, well, it has all of these cool bells and whistles. So on the website where we have our tagline, I want to mention all of these things, and you come up with this lengthy sausage of of a tagline for your business or a mission statement or whatever. And you realize that no one understands when they read it, when they visit your website, and then you have to figure out, how do we cut down on that? And sometimes the best marketing strategy is don't have to say anything about what the features or what the absolute value of that is, right? Because there's so many teachings out there that say, highlight the problem, do this, do that, which it's kind of like what you're starting with, but highlight the problem, the want, and so on. Sometimes, as you say, the easiest thing to get to that aha moment is like compare it to something. The Uber of this, the I had have a friend that has putting him on the spot now, has a business that in London that have these vans, and they're mobile barbers, right? And you book on a phone, and they come to you, park, and you go in, get a haircut, and so on. And I always, when I refer to him and show other people his business, I'm like, the Uber for barbers. Right?
But you get it.
You get it instantly.
Without knowing, you got it. So then there will be nuances for sure. He's going to be like, oh, why did you say only Uber for it? It's much more than that. But it helps to give the image.
The one thing that I recommend all founders should stay away from is just being too generic. To soften it so much that you don't have no idea what they're talking about, what they're saying. And when you say, where the X of that, right, it makes sense, because people instantly go like, where the Netflix of this. They immediately go and know what Netflix is and what it does, and it's like, oh, I understand it. But if you, on the other side, you say, for example, we solve work, as an example, as a tagline. I was like, you do what? What do you exactly do? That's a big thing. That's work. What do you mean work? What kind of work? How do you solve? What exactly do you solve?
You're referring to a specific application of that comparison company to what you're doing, and you're like, worlds apart like this, what do you mean this is like this for that?
Yeah.
Like if the comparison has to be close enough that the application makes sense, so that you can draw a natural parallel, and then to start to be, but then yet be close enough that the picture that you've planted in the receiver's head is close enough to what your business does, because then that at least you've opened the door, and people are mentally preparing for what you're about to say.
And there's no perfect
no
recipe. I was recently talking on this podcast with Wes Bush, bestseller author of Product-Led Growth. I don't know if you've seen the episode.
I love that episode. I saw it as well.
And if you've seen it, he said that the hardest thing is not naming his book, was the tagline in his book. Because that's the value proposition, right? That you need to do. And I think it's the same way with companies. It's not the hardest thing is not naming your company. I feel that sometimes that's so easy, because if we come up with these very creative names and so on. I think the hardest thing is, how do I make people understand what is it that I do? And especially in a kind of like blue ocean, green field type of situation.
But and that's where I think you have to iterate. So it's all about context, it's all about the purpose, right? So we've never said to probably any client, like over the Revolut fart, I said that to investors, because they will understand, Revolut has the whole features of things, it's innovative, it's techy, it's easy to use, the UX is nice. And then so I'm giving you all those images which apply to Artscapy as well. But, to a mainstream user, I'm going to say, this is the platform to help you access the art market, for example.
In the future, you'll be able to say as a tagline, where your bank account for art, while others are your crypto wallets.
Exactly.
Right.
We become the comparison point.
Yeah, exactly. Don't go crypto wallets for your art. Go with a proper solid bank account.
Exactly.
Where are those people?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Like that.
So, right. I end with 3 questions, which you probably already know. First one, a quote that you love.
So I was thinking about this a bit, and the thing that I've had kind of back of my mind since I came across it really was this idea of what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, when I heard about the questions for the podcast, and I saw it on the other episode, I was like, okay, I have to actually look up where this came from. Because I saw it out of context, and I was like, I really like that, because I apply it to my professional journey, and it's about this idea of personal growth, about pushing yourself, about boundary, like expanding your boundaries, really, and that's gonna help to change you, to grow you. And actually, I then did my research, and it was applied to fitness. It was some is a well-known kind of fitness coach or something like this. And it's about, the physical challenge. And that's how you also grow kind of performance or physical performance.
True. Yeah.
But for me, it was always rather a professional thing. And this idea of, do stuff that challenges you. And as a way to help to grow you. And I think nothing challenges you more than being a founder.
Oh, yeah. I feel so old and wise after failing all of these businesses. Definitely. No, it is, honestly, talking here, I'm talking shit about people and stuff, but they don't know who I'm talking about, because I'm not saying names. But, even when I look at some of my acquaintances and so on, it's consuming social media and constant TV, and not using your professional life to challenge yourself, to put yourself in those challenging positions, and having this kind of like flat line type of growth. And the thing is, like, a lot of people want that because it's like, well, I
Scares
just
me a
work. I work for the money. I don't care about that. I don't put zero emotions or feelings or anything like that into that. And my focus is my family, my personal. Fair enough. But what tends to happen is, do you grow? Right?
Yeah.
Do you grow as a person, as an individual, as a human being, as a mind and soul, if your lifeline looks like this?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's pretty impossible. And I know I have friends that seem that they're exactly the same as when we were teenagers, and I'm like, you haven't changed a lot, and they're like, you changed a lot.
Yeah.
And in a sense, it sounds like they're saying it
As a bad thing.
to hurt me, or to basically to poke.
Yeah.
But in my mind, in my mind, I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
It's good.
I'm
I think
so
it's a good
happy
thing.
that you say that I changed a lot. That's what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
Book.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think there are the obvious good ones. I mean, like Lean Startup, Hard Thing About Hard Things, like all those classics that I think are fantastic.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd bring something that has had like a very concrete impact on me, which was a book called Who, by Jeff Smart and Randy Street.
Okay.
And it's about actually hiring people. So as a founder, you have your idea, you have your business, but you don't achieve anything unless you have the right people.
Yeah.
And so what this book does is give you basically a methodological approach to hiring and to avoid the biases that we all put in. So hiring someone that's going to be nice to take out for lunch and to go for after work drinks is not the same that's going to bring your company from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
And this book helps to get rid of basically those kind of personal biases, gives you a structured way to approach hiring, so you make sure you stay objective rather than subjective.
I think it sounds like an amazing book for those that want to build businesses of 100 million, and 10 million, 100 million annual recurring revenue and so on, or valuation, whatever. I think Gary Vee at one point said, you can get your company on your own as a solo founder to $1 million annual recurring revenue.
Yeah.
There's ways to do that, but if you want to go beyond that, you have to have people. Like that's you rely on people to do that, and I think that's very true. I also have people in my network, founders, co-founders, that don't want anyone, and they grow the business to probably a couple of million in annual recurring revenue, but they just don't want to work with anyone. They don't want the bureaucracy of then the having to set up culture, structures, company values, and so on. And it's just the two of them that know each other really well and work with each other really well, and that's what they're happy with. And that's perfectly fine if that's what you want. There will be a plateau eventually,
exactly,
because like you just cannot split yourself in that many places. Once you reach several million in revenue, and depending on the industry, in some industries might be way faster than even reaching $1 million, where you need to hire people, customer support, communication, sales, this, that. But that sounds like a really good book for those that do want to take their businesses beyond.
I mean,
and they don't want to be just a solopreneur.
Yes. I think for anyone, regardless of your motivation, really, because it's about taking away your personal biases, like, because also there, like most of us, you learn as you go, right? And you take an intuitive approach, and a lot of hiring, whether it's in a corporate or in a startup setting, of course you try to say, okay, is this person going to fit my company culture? And that is part of it, right? And can I see myself getting along with this person? Yes, but you also need to understand their professional journey, their ability as professionals to contribute to your organization. because anyway, culture, that's what you also assess through that, because part of culture is, are we seeing the North Star the same way? Are we driven together to drive to this mission? Do you like the mission? And that's what you get out of an objective process, rather than, okay, this person likes scuba diving, I like scuba diving, let's talk about Indonesia.
That's how I used to get into partnerships with people. And was, hey, you like that? Oh, you seem to be excited about that. Let's become co-founders. Really good. Probably something that I should read as well. I haven't heard about the Who book.
Yeah.
I should probably read that.
It's a short, easy read.
That's what I want to hear. My ADD does not allow me to read large and complex books. And habit that you advocate for.
Habit. I was thinking about this as well. So I think one of the things that fascinates me as well is this whole idea of how can you improve your productivity, mental performance, and so forth. And according to Spotify Wrapped, I'm one of the key listeners to Huberman Lab. So if you need an advocate for Huberman, here I am. But in that journey of listening to that, I'm trying to also play with things that was going to help me, being a productive person, basically. And I think one of the things that I was thinking about this from the lens of what has had the biggest impact on me so far of trialing these different protocols. And to some people it might sound boring, but actually for me, the idea of reducing the alcohol that I drink. I wasn't an alcoholic before, but art and nice parties go hand in hand.
Right.
And you end up going to gallery openings and things like this. But that has had an enormous impact on me. It's something I didn't expect. Now I haven't gone to zero, but it's about moderation. So it's about doing the things you want to do and live your life in a balance. But, I do know it is a toxin. It does impact your liver. It's one of the things that, deteriorate and shorten your lifespan. It has all kinds of implications across your body. But that doesn't mean you have to give it up. It's just be conscious that you're consuming a toxin and, be wary of that. And so, I do still have my wines. I love wine. I will keep drinking wine, but I do it in moderation and as a way, and then I also appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah.
And
very true. Yeah.
Yeah, because then it's so easy, especially in London when there are after work drinks. It's let's go to that. Someone offers you something, and it's almost part of the London life, and you don't even really think twice about it.
I've been part of that lifestyle.
We all have, and I didn't realize until I started to be more mindful of it how much it actually impacted me. Like now I sleep much better, I'm more productive, my kind of temper is much more, I'm much more calm, right? So the sleep has been the biggest one, and also like I wake up naturally at 7 on the weekend, like just because I'm waking up rested.
Yeah.
Because I perform better. I perform better physically, mentally.
And isn't it lovely to be able to wake up over the weekend when it's your day off and just wake up earlier and just enjoy life in general rather than sleeping and being hangover until 12 or something
and
like that.
And by the time you're feeling normal again,
it's evening and
you're like, okay, well, the day has passed.
Day of suffering. Day
exactly.
of just
exactly.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I've done the same, but not willingly. Like I've significantly cut on alcohol. Maybe if I have because I'm a beer person, so I love lager beer. That's my poison.
Nice.
But maybe if I have three beers per month max.
Oh wow, that is quite a
and that's probably going to be 2 or 3 beers in one evening in a month or even less. And the reason why is I have chronic headache pains like migraines, and alcohol intensifies that significantly.
Yeah.
So if I drink, if I'm not feeling well, if I have a headache, which happens often, and I drink alcohol, it's gonna amplify. Or if it's super mild and I'm not feeling it, not feeling the headache, and I drink, it just skyrockets.
That's
So
interesting.
that kind of like forced me into
Yeah.
not drinking that much. So, and now I got used to it, and I'm now talking. I'm like, it's Friday. I should probably have a beer. I want to have a beer. I'll have a goddamn beer. I haven't had one in a long time.
Yeah. But it's about the regulation, about the moderation. So I never liked this, and I also think we're in a big fad of you must do this and you know, everything and anything you see, okay, eat more spinach, and then the next person say, but spinach, if you eat too much, is gonna make you into a carrot. Like you just become
into a carrot. You
yes,
said
yes. That's how the cause and effect works. Yes.
All right.
It's gonna be my next paper.
Spinach and you transform into a carrot. What if you eat apples? What would you transform into?
Pear.
Pear, yeah, definitely. There you go.
No, but it's about the moderation, right? And I think it's about adjusting things that improve your life quality.
Yeah.
And that for me has been one of the big levers recently.
You know, it sounds so simple. Oh yeah, be moderate and so on, but it's so hard. So hard because we are creatures of pleasures.
Yeah.
And it is very hard for absolutely everyone. I think.
Yeah, not gonna lie. In the beginning, I quite struggled. Like you would go to, because the afterwork drinks don't stop, right? It's just you choose not to go. Yeah.
Or to have a
yeah
fizzy drink or a glass of water.
And in the beginning, you feel awkward about it.
Yeah.
But then after a certain point, you know, you become fine with it. You become a normal thing. You don't. I don't miss it at all. I don't. You know, I'm not missing it in the setting.
I think people need more negative reinforcement or pain. Because like, look, like for you probably took like needed a lot of motivation and a certain level of discipline and such. But that's what a lot of people miss. The motivation and discipline, especially when you're like the amount of alcohol that I used to drink in the past where I had stressful periods and you just want to unwind, detach, and just I need a beer. I need after work. I need a pint or two of beer. So I'm gonna go to the pub with my buddies and I'm just gonna, you know, and it becomes like this relief for certain things.
A crutch and
and everything. Like even if you think of chocolate, sweets, this, that, sometimes because of stress, because of, you know, you eat more, you try to hit that dopamine level in your addictions and stuff. So it takes, and it's very hard to use discipline and to be disciplined in this and that.
And to break the cycle.
Negative reinforcement works. Like for me, for example, because I've been getting for a couple of years these headaches constantly, like I know that I'm not going to touch alcohol very often because I hate the headaches, the crazy, not being able to look at bright lights, having to be under the blanket and so on.
Yeah.
And I think, more people should, I don't know, maybe just, I don't know, do something that get a buzzer that shocks you or something like that and turn it up to 10. And if you feel crap the next day because you drink a lot, just buzz yourself and you know that you get yourself buzzed every single time you, I don't know, do something.
Have you tried cold exposure? Speaking of
I've not no.
Yeah, you should. I think you would like it. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of athletes and kind of like influencers that I follow, and I like doing that, but I'm terrible with cold. I love heat, like that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to cold temperatures, I'm terrible. But I would definitely do it.
Yeah, because it basically flips that. So I used to hate cold, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to do this. There's no way in the world that I'm going to do this. And then I was like, okay, but now I'm gonna do this as a challenge. I'm going to do this basically. I think I just said, okay, I'm gonna do this for 10 days, see how I feel. Hated it. By sort of day 8, 9, you're like, actually there is something to this. and you start to moderate your temperature much better, you feel an alertness that is great. Like I feel like you've had 3 shots of coffee without doing anything. Your mood goes up. You have all these kind of side effects that you didn't anticipate or doesn't seem at surface logical to you, but you get them by challenging yourself. And it's a bit about what you were saying, like this idea of breaking the cycle, right? Like I had this mental blocking as saying I cannot handle or stand the cold, therefore I will not do it. But actually by doing it, my ability to handle cold has improved, and like the way you regulate your body temperature and your blood circulation improves.
That's I can see how that's happening, because whenever I take like a super cold shower because I don't know, the heating is not working or stuff, like you just feel like so alive all of a sudden.
It's the aliveness.
It's like just a punch in the face. Well, thank you so much for the conversation.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed this. Although we did talk quite a lot more about and dived a bit more in the arts industry and what you're doing there, more so than your entrepreneur hardships and so on, although we've touched on that a bit. I feel that it's a really interesting topic to me because it's so unfamiliar. And it's really interesting to hear you talk about what's going on there and how the market works and investors and collectors and the art landscape. So thank you so much for that insightful session.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. Thank you for letting me babble on my passion.
Well, that's why we're here. And thank you for talking to me about, because this is one of the things that, I've never really understood is where certain drives come from, certain character traits. And it does sound kind of like the curiosity of research and really understanding how things function, and the cause and effect, and this kind of like nerdiness around this is basically what triggered your career path and your interest into numbers and this kind of very analytical work. So thank you for that. Next time I have a quite big analyst on the show, cool.
I'll have to listen to the episode as well.
Yeah, I'll make sure that I mention that I know where your source of
I know why you
interest.
like this.
I know why you like this. Yes. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me.